So want to make sure everybody is aware of that. And with that, we will get started. So I will call our March 16th meeting of the 43rd District Democrats to order. Thank you all for being here. And to start us off, our Secretary, Ellen Eads, is going to give a land acknowledgement.
I would like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded ancestral traditional lands of the Duwamish people, who are among those we call the Coast Salish. Duwamish means inside people, referring to all people living inside the Puget Sound. In particular, I want to acknowledge the people of the large lake, Hashuabs, who lived around Lake Washington. These lands have been inhabited by human beings for around 10,000 years. The Duwamish are still here, continuing to honor and bring to light their ancient heritage, despite having no federal recognition due to having no legally acknowledged lands. We honor their struggle for their rights, and we're grateful to their elders for their stewardship.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Really appreciate that. Okay, so before we jump into the rest of our agenda, I want to make another acknowledgement really quickly. This is unplanned. I just saw before I joined this meeting that there was potentially we don't know all of the information yet, but a mass shooting in Atlanta, potentially targeted against the Asian American community. This is on top of a rise in hate crimes against the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities here in Washington State and also nationwide, and which has really been fomented in many ways by our past president and really divisive, xenophobic political rhetoric. And I just want to take this moment to say that hate has no place in our communities. It has no place here. It has no place anywhere. And we absolutely stand with the Asian American community against these hate crimes. I know there were various rallies over this past weekend. There's more work to do, and want to. I know you all are with me and in strong agreement on there, but just want to take this chance to acknowledge what is happening and call on all of us to do our part to step up and shut that down and continue our work against hate and violence in all of its forms, and especially as it's being targeted at our Asian American community at this moment. So thank you for that. I just thought that was important to call out. So moving forward, we have our agenda, we're going to do our meeting norms and Robert's Rules explanation next. So Morgan, if you could take us through that.
Yes, so like last month, general meeting operations. To seek the floor for any reason, since chat is disabled, you are able to chat with hosts and co-hosts, so that's still available to you. But if you would like to seek the floor, please raise your hand. There are a couple options to raise hand in Zoom. It could be in the participants tab at the bottom of your Zoom window, as shown here. It could also be in your reactions tab, also in the bottom of your Zoom window. Once the chair has called on you, and once you've spoken, please lower your hand. There is a possibility that if we need to take a quick poll, the chair may ask you for a yes or no reaction, which is also found in either the participants or reactions tabs. Like I mentioned, general chat is disabled. So if you need help for technical difficulties, like I can't raise my hand, you can reach out to me. My name in the participants list is Morgan McMurray-meeting help. If you need your voting code help, if you can't find your voting code, you don't have it, you can email tally@43rddemocrats.org or reach out to Bryce, noted as Bryce Colton -voting code help in the participants list. The meeting is being live streamed currently to Facebook. So if you would like to chat, you can do so there. I did post the link and I will post it again for anyone who joined recently. But that is what we have. Oh, and also if you need to raise your hand, but you are calling in via phone and you're not on a computer, you can press ***9. So *9 raises your hand if you are calling in.
Awesome. Thanks, Morgan. And then were we going to go over the meeting norms as well?
Yep, we have first slide here and then Robert's rules.
Yes. Maddie, were you going to explain our meeting norms for us?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So to go over our meeting norms, the first one being treat each other with dignity and respect. The second being, if you don't know, please feel free to ask. As Morgan walked us through, you can raise your hand to seek the floor. Even if you're unfamiliar with Robert's rules or our current procedure, raise your hand. You know, Scott or I or the other members would be more than happy to help you either formulate the response or just simply, you know, answer your question. Number 3, step up. So if you are someone who doesn't always feel as comfortable speaking up or isn't someone who does that normally, you know, we encourage you to step up, ask questions, participate in our breakup sessions. But if you are someone who has no trouble speaking up, please remember to step back and allow that space for other folks, especially our new folks here with us tonight who might have questions or need that space for themselves to feel comfortable further engaging with the 43rd District Democrats. Number 4, remember everyone here is a volunteer, many of whom have gotten off work. So, you know, be patient, be understanding. You know, we're doing the best we can, as I know you all are as well. And then just as a reminder, together we share the responsibility for staying on time. Scott can only do so much, especially if, you know, the conversations are going, folks ask questions. We do want to get everyone out by 9 p.m., but to do that, we will need your help. So not only preparing for the meetings before you arrive, but also, you know, getting your questions answered in a timely manner would help us all as well. These meeting norms are a work in progress, so should you have anything that you think that we have forgotten or like to chat with us further about, please feel free to get in touch and let us know, and we'll be happy to add them for the next meeting. Back to you, Scott.
Awesome, thanks. And Morgan, if you could take us to the next slide, great. So I have some good news. This will not be a very Robert's Rules of Order heavy meeting for everyone, but just so that we're all on the same page when we do get to our resolutions. Robert's Rules of Orders are the set of parliamentary procedures that we use to run our meetings to make sure that everyone gets a fair chance to speak and that we hear all sides of debates. You really don't need to know the details. As Maddie and Morgan have both said, if you have a question, please raise your hand. If you want to make an amendment or something of that sort, please just raise your hand and we will help you form that into the appropriate motion. You also, if you don't understand what is going on or what we're voting on, please do raise your hand and ask us to slow down. Everybody who is in these meetings has a right to understand what's going on and be a full participant. So the last part at the bottom, if you know your Robert's Rules, front to back, you've read every single page, that's awesome. You are a rock star, but please just be aware that not everybody is on the same level and help us move things along rather than trying to show your knowledge of Robert's Rules. So yeah, with that, really appreciate it. I will say one more time, if you have not gotten an email with your voting code already, please do message, look in your inbox, look in your spam folders, it should be there. But if you don't see it, please do message Bryce Colton and he will help you get that figured out. So thanks. I think Morgan has already shared out the link to our agenda. Are there any amendments to our agenda as shared in the chat? Any amendments to our agenda? All right, seeing none, we have our no amendments. We have our agenda for tonight. And then are there any corrections to our February meeting minutes? If there's no corrections, we will approve those without objection. All right, seeing no hands, we have our minutes from our February meeting, and we will dive into the first item on our official agenda, which is our candidate guest speakers. So we have a variety of candidates here to speak to us tonight. They'll each have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and the position they're running for and their campaigns. And our first one up is Seattle City Attorney Pete Holmes, who is running for re-election. And if you could help me unmute people, Morgan, that would be great.
Yes, I have asked to unmute. Try again.
I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
We can, yes.
Wonderful. Nice job. Thanks a lot, Scott. Thank you all. Hey, it's great to be back virtually at the 43rd. And I've got a note at the outset that it reminds me of my very first campaign back in 2009, that one grand tradition of the 43rd and the 11th LDs having meeting on the same night has been honored and is carried through. I'm going to join them later tonight, but it's really a thrill to be back here. You know, I just very quickly want to point out that I'm running for the unprecedented 4th term as city attorney. And I want you all to understand that I feel an obligation, a responsibility, a calling, if you will, to continue the work at the city attorney's office. Whoever is elected mayor later this year, assuming that I am reelected, then that will be my 6th mayor. We will be looking for our 7th chief of police. We will be negotiating another contract with SPOG. And that is in addition to the other work that this office is doing every day for the people of Seattle. Defeating Tim Iman's I-976 initiative, making sure that the jumpstart tax is defended, the eviction moratorium is defended. That's the work that this office does. And I see a need for it more than ever. And Scott, with that really sobering reminder that you had about the shooting in Atlanta, I'm trying to learn more about it as well. I want you to understand that controlling the flood of firearms on our streets remains one of my top priorities. And I was really proud when last year we actually seized an arsenal by a regional firearms enforcement unit that my office created together with Dan Satterberg. We went out and seized up in Marysville a cache of arms that was held by an accelerationist, if you will, a white supremacist. That's the kind of work that I want to continue doing for the city of Seattle. And I think that as we emerge from this pandemic, on which I'm bullish that I think we are going to come back strong, I just want to caution that there are elements that want to make sure that we try to hold people accountable for problems that are not of their making. Their abject poverty, the housing crisis that we're facing, people with mental health crises and substance abuse addictions. There is a very real danger that instead of building back better, like our new president wants us all to do.
And
that
that's 2 minutes. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Pete. Really
You bet.
appreciate it. Okay, up next, we have Port Commissioner Ryan Calkins has joined us.
All right, sent the ask to unmute. Let me know if you're having trouble.
I see Commissioner Calkins.
Oh, there we go.
Hey, there we go. Sorry, guys. I'm working with pretty old technology and sometimes it gives me fits.
Yeah, no worries. Great to have you here with us.
Well, thank you all so much for the time. My name is Ryan Calkins. I'm a commissioner at the Port of Seattle, and I am also up for re-election this year alongside Pete. And this is the first LD where I get to come and speak about my re-election campaign, which is appropriate because it's my home LD. I live in Eastlake, one of your neighbors, and a proud member of the 43rd. As I look ahead to hopeful re-election and what we hope to accomplish in the next 4 years at the Port of Seattle, I'm actually really pretty excited about the period that we're moving into. We have, when I was running 4 years ago, I spent a lot of time talking about jobs, the environment, and transparency in government and in how we run one of our largest public agencies in the area. And as I moved into campaigning for hopefully a second term on the Port of Seattle Commission, I think a lot of that remains the same, but there's a new emphasis for me on equity. that as we have had 4 good years under pretty strong leadership of the Port of Seattle, I think we really need to start thinking about how we combine that focus on environmental sustainability and equity. And a couple of years ago, we took a very big step in establishing an Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And it has been absolutely fundamental in our ability to meet the needs of populations that historically have been furthest from economic and educational justice. To have the sort of culture at the port and also the data on the communities that we work in, so that when the crisis hit, we were able to immediately respond with things like the South King County Economic Fund and also our environmental fund that could support those workers primarily that had been displaced by the crisis, but in particular focus on the communities that had been most impacted, immigrant communities, female entrepreneurs. And now as we look ahead to the next 4 years, I think our efforts at recovery really need to focus on with women and BIPOC owned businesses.
And that's 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to meeting with you all again.
Yeah, thanks so much, Commissioner Calkins. Really appreciate it and glad to have you here in the 43rd. All right, up next we have another candidate for a different port position. Toshiko Hasegawa is running for Port Commission position 4.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, honorable members of the Executive Committee, and the members of the 46th Legislative District Democrats. My name is Toshiko Hasegawa, lifelong Democrat who's passionate about strengthening the party and what we stand for. You know, as a member of the governor's subcabinet on business diversity, I have seen firsthand the devastating impact of COVID on our communities and our businesses. And I'm running in the wake of economic devastation because I have the values and I have the experience to best meet the needs of this dire moment, to rebuild the economy, to be better than it was before. Resiliency means healthy ecosystems that lead to healthy people, economic empowerment, which will beget social justice, and a Blue New Deal to embrace our sustainability goals and stimulate job growth so that the rising tide of the economy will lift all of our boats. As a lifelong Seattleite, I bring the understanding that maritime and aviation industries are more than just our economy. They're formative in our regional culture and our identity. But most importantly, I bring the sense of urgency to the position and to the port to answer to the regional challenges of our time. I am endorsed by progressive champions, including our very own council member in King County, Jeannie Cole-Wells, council member Rod Dembowski, council member Gurmai Zahilai, as well as Seattle City Council member Dan Strauss. And I would be so humbled to receive your bid of support and a formal endorsement at a future time. Thank you so much. I'll be putting contact and additional information in the chat, or if that's not possible, for the chairs to share with you all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And to any of our candidates, if you have links for us to share, please send them to Morgan McMurray and she'll share them to the chat for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you so much. So our other candidate that was going to be joining us tonight is Hamdi Mohammed, who's also running for port. I don't see Hamdi here. If you're here under a different name, raise your hand and we will unmute you. Otherwise, I think Hamdi will be joining us shortly, and we'll hear from her when she's available. As Pete mentioned earlier, the 11th also has candidate meets at the same time as us, and she might be over there right now. So with that, we will move right on time at 7:20 to the next part of our agenda, which is approving some new PCOs here in the 43rd. As many of you know, PCOs are our precinct committee officers who walk their block, get out the vote, introduce themselves to their neighbors and register folks. And we have, I think, around 117 current PCOs, and there are over 200 precincts in the 43rd. So we are working hard to fill up those precincts. And tonight we have 3 folks that we're going to appoint to represent their own precinct, and then 2 folks who we're going to appoint to represent precincts nearby, who are going to help us get out the vote in those precincts and every block of the 43rd LD. So we will go through this list and have our prospective PCOs say a few words. If folks could introduce yourself, your name, pronouns, and what neighborhood you live in, and maybe what caused you to want to become a 43rd PCO, that would be great. So going through this list, I am actually the first person on it, so I'll go really quickly. Many of you know me. My name is Scott Alspa. I use he, him pronouns. I live on Capitol Hill, and the really fantastic elected PCO in my precinct had to move recently, and so I'm stepping up to help out and make sure my precinct is covered. So yeah, really excited to be a 43rd PCO again. Next up is Ryan Watt. Yeah, sorry, we'll try and unmute folks.
Perfect. Thanks, Scott. Glad to be here with you all. I'm Ryan Watt, he, him. I live in West Woodland, and I'm a recent arrival in the 43rd from the 36th. Just moved south a couple of blocks, which switched LDs for me. In my day job, I work for a national nonprofit that works with communities around the country and around the world to help them reach a measurable end to homelessness. And I do a fair amount of work around homelessness in Seattle as well, outside of my job. Outside of that work and the work that I'm hoping to do with you all in the 43rd, I'm also fairly involved with the Urbanist and have been a part of their elections committee for each of the last 3 cycles. I'd be really grateful for the opportunity to have an excuse to get to know all my new neighbors by being a PCO and hopefully get more of them than already did to vote Democrat. So thank you for the consideration.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ryan. And up next is Connor. And Connor, I'm not going to try and pronounce your last name because I think I might get it wrong, but I look forward to hearing how it's pronounced.
Hi, my name's Connor Urcuyo. That's how you say it. It's from Nicaragua.
Great.
Yeah, I live across the street from Woodland Park. And just about me, I'm a grad student at UW studying public policy and just really passionate about politics. In the past, I worked for Congresswoman Jayapal here in Seattle on her campaign and then in DC for a little while. And this summer I was a DNC delegate for Joe Biden. So that was a really fun experience. So yeah, just happy to be able to serve my neighborhood.
Yeah, it's really great to have you. Thanks so much. All right, so then moving to our precinct coordinators who are going to be covering precincts outside of their own, we have Adam Vance.
Hey everybody, Adam Vance, he, him pronouns. I live at that weird intersection of Broadway and Madison where I'm kind of Capitol Hill, kind of First Hill. I've lived in the 43rd for almost 12 years now. I've been involved in politics in one way or another kind of my entire life. My family was involved in politics. I went to the UW Evans School, I'm guessing, Connor. Evans School right here too, loved it. Currently work for the Next Generation Orca program at Sound Transit. And so I just love being involved in public policy and want to help better my community.
Yeah, thanks so much, Adam. Really great to have you. So then up next we have Mariah Mitchell. And I don't know if Mariah is here. Okay, so not seeing Mariah. Mariah, if you are here, please raise your hand. Okay, so with that, I think the motion on the floor would be to appoint all of these folks as either PCOs or precinct coordinators. Is there any, I guess I should technically give this over to Maddie to do it since I'm appointing myself, but I'll just ask really quickly, is there any objection to appointing these folks as PCOs? Any objection? All right. Hearing none, we have appointed 5 new PCOs. So thanks, everybody. Really great to have you all aboard. And I will take this moment to say, if you are interested in joining us as PCOs, please do reach out to our PCO coordinator, Cody Olson. He would be really happy to help you get signed up. And Cody, if you could share the link to sign up, that would be great. So folks can look for that in the chat. All right, so with that, we will move on to sort of our main program for the night, which is a presentation on the current progressive revenue proposals in the Washington legislative session, which is going to be led by Beth Lindsay from Invest in Washington Now.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Beth Lindsay. I'm representing Invest in Washington Now. We're a brand new C4 organization whose sole mission is to advocate for progressive revenue. And I have a PowerPoint presentation for you tonight that kind of talks about our approach, walks you through that, our approach, the bills moving in Olympia that deal with progressive revenue, and how you can get involved. So Scott, can I share my screen?
I think you should have that ability. If you don't, let us know. We will get that to you.
Let me try.
Yeah, you should have permission to do it. There we go. Perfect.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Ta-da. Okay, great. Like I said, we're Invest in Washington Now, a brand new group. And we are funded by educators, working family, and we have activists across the state. We have an idea about how to kickstart our economy and get Washington back on track. And we think the best way to do that is to keep money flowing through our communities, to invest in people, and to ask the wealthiest few to pay their share. We have a new ad that I think kind of eloquently explains, and I've got it teed up here, so I'm hoping this works for you all. Can you hear it?
Like how money flowing.
Yes, we cannot see it if
Oh.
it is
Cannot see it.
We currently see your PowerPoint screen. So I don't know if you just shared the PowerPoint maybe.
Let's try this again. It's just a 30-second ad.
Yeah, you probably have to give Zoom permission to view your web browser and then share that and then go back to your PowerPoint. Yeah.
All right, I'll put the link in the chat, and I'll just go back to my PowerPoint, and I'll send you all some follow-up. All right, so there's this really great ad. It's part of what we're doing. We have ad buys, we have digital strategy, and we have a business outreach team. So we're bringing folks, we're engaging the general public, and we're engaging activists across the state. So I don't have to tell you all that COVID and the pandemic are having a real effect on our economy, but I do want to provide a little bit of context with these numbers. So we've got businesses closing, 1 million people filed for unemployment, more people than ever relying on state assistance, and a new and startling statistic that we learned recently is that about 20% of applicants for state assistance are brand new to the system. And so these are folks who have not had to ask for help before, but times are tough, and we're seeing a lot more people having to rely on state funded programs. The pandemic has been especially hard on BIPOC communities. They are more likely to have lost their insurance, their jobs, and of course the health effects have hit a lot of them harder. And we're now seeing disparities with vaccination. But not everybody in the pandemic is suffering, as this table illustrates, and these numbers are from October, so they're even a little bit outdated, that there are people who are doing just fine and even better than just fine in this pandemic. So what do legislators do? They're facing a pretty startling budget shortfall. And in our view, they have two choices. They can cut spending and continue to hurt people and businesses and the economy, or they can raise taxes on those at the top who can most afford it, and fund services that we all depend on and that some communities desperately need. So you probably are familiar with the term progressive revenue, but it's not actually a liberal idea. It's a technical term, and the IRS defines it here as taking a larger percent of income from high income groups than from lower income groups. It's based on the concept of the ability to pay. So this is, I want to make sure that you understand the technical definition. But for us, oops, I'm going to skip ahead to this. This is what it looks like when we use progressive revenue, that we have the legislature investing in services and programs that we depend on. It's putting money in the pockets of individuals. Those businesses can then extend their opening hours, hire employees, more people are back to work, and the cycle continues as communities thrive. I'm going to skip back now and talk to you a little bit about the bills that are moving. We're tracking 5 main bills moving in Olympia right now. The top of the list and the one that has had the most traction so far this session is 5096. It's a capital gains tax. It's been making the news lately, and you may have read about it. It's a tax on the extraordinary profits from the sale of stocks and bonds. It passed the House just a few weeks ago. Just yesterday, it had a hearing. I'm sorry, it passed the Senate a few weeks ago. It had a hearing yesterday in the House. It has not been voted out of the House yet, but we're hopeful that that will come soon. It'll be sent back to the Senate at that point. Hopefully some of the kinks will get worked out of that, and we can strengthen the bill there. But there are also some other really important bills that are moving. 1496 is the House version of that same bill. 1406 is a wealth tax that's would implement a 1% tax on wealth over $1 billion. So would only apply to the very wealthiest of Washingtonians. And then 1465 would make our estate tax more progressive. And really exciting, the Working Families Tax Credit, which was passed a number of years ago but never funded, has actually passed the House and is in the Senate waiting for a hearing there. So we're hopeful about all of those bills. And I want to just, with a caveat, I'm happy to answer your questions, but I am a political and communications consultant and not a policy expert. So if I don't know the answer to a policy question, I'm happy to find out and get back to you. All right, moving on. So this crisis, we feel, is not just a challenge, but we can also look at it as an opportunity. We can make our tax structure with these progressive revenue bills, we can make it more fair and less racist. We can give communities the resources they need, because Washington has so many resources. We're a state with a lot of wealth. We just need to tap it so that every community has what it needs. We can fund education, childcare, healthcare, programs for seniors, and so much more. But we really need, in order to do that, we have to balance our tax code and address some of the racial and class issues that are embedded in it. And by doing that, we call on the legislature to ask wealthiest folks to pay their share. Grassroots Democrats like you are really key to this process. You can help hold your legislators accountable. You can thank them when they've pushed legislation through and advocated for it, and you can keep this top of mind for them. There are a few ways to join our group and our colleagues. You can sign our petition, it's on our website. We've already turned in over 10,000 signatures of Washingtonians across the state who believe that we need progressive revenue to fix our tax code. You can follow us on social media. and you can tag your legislators when you post on Twitter or Facebook. And then talk to your friends and neighbors. We are trying to take this conversation about progressive revenue out of Olympia and to the general public and across the state, because it really is so important. In Olympia, we spend a lot of time fighting over small pieces of a pie when really there is enough to go around. We just need to ask the wealthiest few to pay their share so that the rest of our communities can have what they need. So with that, I am happy to take questions, comments, suggestions.
Yeah, thanks so much. That would be great. So if folks have questions, if you could raise your hand, we will unmute you and get around to those. And please don't be shy. If folks are looking for the raise your hand button, it can be in two places, I think. One is down in the bottom in reactions, and then the other is right next to you on the participants. So Eric.
Eric.
Hi. So I was wondering, when you spoke about the capital gains tax, and you said selling for cash and getting cash out of your capital investment, is that, I thought capital gains was when you held the stock and the value increased. So the value doubled, say it was worth 500 and now it's worth 1,000. I thought that was a capital gain, but it's not taxed even when you do sell it. Is that what I understood from what you said?
That's right. There's no current state capital gains tax. You may be subject to a federal capital gains tax. The level of capital gains in this proposed bill is $200,000. In other words, you would have to have profit of $200,000 or more, and then you would pay a 7% capital gains tax on that.
But that would be if the stock went up, regardless if you sold it or not. Is that right?
No, it's only, it is only when you sell the stock.
Okay, because I misunderstood that.
Yeah.
From
It only comes into play when the stock is sold.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yep. And there are a number of exemptions in this bill for retirement accounts, for the sale of business, for real estate, for cattle and livestock. There are a number of carve-outs, to the point where there are only less than 1% of Washingtonians would be subject to the bill as proposed.
No, I think it's a great idea.
Yep.
I think it should be taxed. Capital gains should be taxed more, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
I don't think you're alone in that, Eric. So yeah, thanks so much. All right, up next, Camille, go for it.
Hi, the question I had is about the wealth tax. So I know that just looking at the state legislature website, it would appear due to cutoffs that it would have died, but because of it could be deemed necessary to implement the budget, it is not necessarily. Do you know where conversations around the wealth tax are at the moment?
What I've heard is that capital gains faces the biggest hurdle at this moment, and this is the main focus of the legislature. So they want to tackle capital gains first, and I think kind of consider the political climate and some other factors and move on to the other progressive revenue bills. But we think it's a win that so many bills addressing the upside down tax code have been introduced this year. It's pretty remarkable. Capital gains itself has been considered for about 8 years. It's never passed the Senate and it's never gotten this far. But if not now, when? Our state is in an emergency, and if there is ever a time to address this system, our broken system, it is now. People need help. And this is, like I said, this is the opportunity to do it. We're reckoning with so many of our outdated systems nationally and at the state level in terms of race, class, climate. This is one more that really needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. Thanks, Camille. And so then Al.
Hi,
Hello.
Al.
Hi. Yep. I'm really excited that these things are finally going forward. My greatest embarrassment of Washington State is how upside down our tax code is in terms of, taxing the lower your income, the more taxes you pay. I'm in favor of the idea of, for now, having the capital gains tax be mostly for new programs. So in case it gets caught up in court, it doesn't, impact programs we need to have funded today. When do you think we'll be able to get to the point where our progressive taxes can start being used to reduce our regressive taxes, like reducing the sales tax, perhaps reducing the property tax, that sort of thing?
Yeah, great question. And I agree. And a lot of folks we work with say, this is great that we're going to ask the wealthy to pay more, but when will the rest of us pay less? And that is really what it means to balance our tax code. I will say that the legislature has a special committee looking at tax reform, and they're going to come out. Noel Frame is a leader on that, and they're expected to come out with some recommendations this session, but I think in this interim. But they didn't want to wait another year on capital gains and taking the first step with some of these other bills as well. So believe me, we're pushing for it. But the legislature is a big ship that turns very slowly, and change is incremental most of the time. So we will continue to advocate for that, and we believe it's part of the problem and part of the solution.
Yeah, do you have any other questions from folks?
I have a few ways to follow up with you. I can send you the table so you can track the bills if your members are interested in that. I'll send you our ad in case you want to take a look at our website. And we'd love for you to get engaged. Senator Peterson was a key vote on the floor of the Senate, and I sat through 4.5 hours of floor arguments, and he was a really important voice. And so we appreciate his leadership and hope that, when you get the chance to chat with him, you can thank him for that. But it's not over yet. We have to pass this bill. So it's going to come back to the Senate. It's going to be a really tough fight there. And we would love your help in getting it passed and then celebrating a great victory. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I presume, actually, I'm confident that our representatives are both in support, correct? Nicole Macri and Representative Chomp.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. So yes, good to let them know that we support, and also for other folks, encourage your friends and family to comment on these bills and send in their support, because, these are close votes, as Beth mentioned. So
these are really close votes. Elections matter. As PC, I know you just had a PCO appointment process, and man, if there was one thing we learned from the capital gains bill passing the floor of the Senate, is that elections matter, and the work you do really matters. And we saw it last weekend or 2 weekends ago when that bill passed the Senate floor. So. Please keep up the great work. I know tax policy isn't always very exciting. It's hard to engage in these conversations with your family, but please keep it up, because it really does make a difference, and we appreciate it. Thank you again for having me. And I'll be sending Scott some follow-up materials. Please reach out anytime you have questions or want to learn more.
Yeah, thank you so much, Beth. Really appreciate you joining us. So, and folks should look out for more from Beth, and then also our own policy committee, who's looking out for keeping a close eye on all of these. So,
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, have a good evening, Beth.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so up next, we are, speaking of our policy committee, we are going to have an update from that committee on the work they've been doing, on the bills they've been following. This is a new committee. As many of you remember, we elected Camille as our chair just at our last meeting. So they have really hit the ground running and have a lot of great stuff to share. So Camille, I'll let you take it away.
Thanks. Yeah, so like Scott said, right from the start of the committee, which was added to this organization in February, we've done a lot to determine legislative priorities and figure out a few key bills within a few different priority areas that are the most important. We had an open committee meeting to discuss those bills. For anyone interested in what that process was like, the areas that we decided on for our agenda were progressive revenue, safe and affordable housing, community investment in education, police accountability, and climate justice. Between these 5 areas of focus, we selected about 30 bills which fit under these different categories. Based on the number of people in the committee, we didn't want to cast our net too wide to have so many bills that we can't keep track of them all. And so we selected about 30. After the cutoff for the day that, which was March 9th, which was the day where any bill had to have passed out of its chamber of origin, either the House or the Senate. After that day, 14 of the bills are still completely alive. Like we said, there's a couple in there that could still be deemed necessary to implement the budget, which means that they could be brought back later during this session. But of those 14 bills, almost all of them have had a public hearing at this point, which we've been sending you all the legislative update emails the past couple of weeks about signing in on those public hearings, which is really important. It's a good way to have your voice heard. The capital gains tax, for instance, had 4,000 people sign in with a either pro or con opinion, and over 2,400 people signed in pro, while 1,400 signed in against the capital gains. And so every person signing into these different bills at the public hearings makes a difference, as well as any written testimony that anyone wants to submit. If you've never submitted written testimony before, you can feel free to reach out to me or anyone on the committee for any assistance moving forward for these public hearings. By the end of this week, the majority of the 14 bills that are still alive will have been voted on in their committees, and hopefully then moved on to the next step in the process to be brought to the floor for a final vote. And if approved on the floor of the second chamber, then they will be sent off to Governor Inslee for approval. And notably, one of the ones that has already been voted in committee and passed is House Bill 1078, which is a bill that would restore voter eligibility for formerly incarcerated people. So that passed out of the Senate State Government and Elections Committee this week, which was good news, and passed on to the Rules Committee. And then in other news, so back in September, this organization passed a resolution in favor of the Pathways to Recovery Act, which would decriminalize the possession of drugs in Washington state. Treatment First Washington led the charge to bring this to the state legislature in the form of House Bill 1499. Which unfortunately, after the February 22nd fiscal committee cutoff, did not pass out of committee. and died there. But in a kind of interesting turn of kind of twist of events, later in that exact same week, the Washington State Supreme Court passed a ruling which would effectively do exactly what 1499 would have done in decriminalizing the possession of small amounts of drugs. And in the next couple of years, releasing a significant amount of people that are currently in prison on possession charges. So that Supreme Court ruling was really huge for the Treatment First Washington campaign. And the big problem with the ruling as opposed to the bill is the bill had a proposed funding option for developing infrastructure and rehabilitation programs to replace the prison sentences that people were previously receiving for possession charges, which this Supreme Court ruling does not do. But after the Supreme Court ruling, despite efforts mostly from Republican legislators to introduce bills late on in the session to reverse the ruling, none of those were successful. So as of now, with the Supreme Court ruling, it looks as though within the next year and a half or so, possession of small amounts of drugs will be decriminalized in Washington state. And that is all I have for the legislative updates. Keep an eye out for weekly emails that we will continue sending through this legislative session in Washington state, which will have weekly action items for all of you to take in the form of emailing our representatives, signing in public hearings, and a variety of other things that you can do to have your voice heard during this session in Olympia. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Camille. Are there any questions for Camille about the report or other things going on in the legislature? Give folks a chance to figure out how to raise your hand if we need to. Linda.
So have we thought about what will happen when all these people come out of prison and what needs to be in place to help them rejoin the community? I know there's at least one bill in the legislature that deals with restoring voting rights. But have we thought about any of the other possible ramifications? We banned the box a while back, and that's helpful. What else needs to happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. The Treatment First Washington is the organization that is leading the way in this, or that had been leading the way for House Bill 1499, is still meeting weekly as a coalition. And at the most recent coalition meeting, the conversations were that this was a very last minute, unexpected decision. And so because 1499 died, and then right after the Supreme Court made this unexpected decision, they are like, okay, we need to now figure out a way to develop the infrastructure for this ruling that would have been developed under 1499, and potentially by introducing a new bill in the second half of this session that would no longer have the decriminalization aspect because it's not needed anymore, but something that would develop funding for infrastructure and rehabilitation facilities that would provide that sort of transition for folks getting released from jails.
Awesome. Eric.
Yes, hi. I was just curious, you mentioned the email notification. Is that coming through the 43rd email, or is that a distinct email?
Yeah, that should be coming. probably says that it's coming from me, Camille Gix, but it's coming from my 43rd email. If you're not,
if I'm not on a list, I don't get it. It doesn't come through the standard, the regular emails that the 43rd sends out.
yes, it is. Yes, it is on the list, or the email is being sent out to our list of folks who are on the mailing list.
So I will get that without having to take any action.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and I'd check your spam. If you haven't received the last two, I would check your spam and promotions folder. I know that some of the emails from the 43rd go to those from me as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Any other questions for Camille? Awesome. Not seeing any. So yeah, thanks so much to the work of our policy committee. We're right in the middle of the legislative session, so that's been where the focus is right now, but their plans are to expand to city council and then also up to our federal representatives as well. We'll be discussing that a little bit. I just realized that I had turned off my video during the presentation, so hello again, everybody. So yeah, please do reach out to Camille if you are interested in getting involved. There's much more work to be done there than we have the capacity for, so we can certainly find a place for your interests. And I will just say, I have appreciated getting the legislative action emails. It takes me, I added in the password manager that I use, I added a form for the legislative site. So it now takes me about 10 seconds to fill out a sign in pro. And I really encourage everybody, it does make a difference to have really overwhelming numbers in support of these bills. Okay, so with that, we are going to move through our agenda into some breakout sessions, so we all have a chance to discuss and get to know each other a little bit better. Morgan, do you want to explain to us all how that is going to work?
Yeah, definitely. So this time around, instead of breaking out by committees, you'll be randomly assigned to a room. And discussion will be led by board members in that room, but really don't be afraid to bring up anything, questions or concerns that came up from any of the presentations. And then of course the board members do have some questions for you. But if at any time you don't want to be in a breakout room, if you don't want to participate, totally fine. I do encourage it, but if you aren't feeling it tonight, the main meeting room will be open as a quiet room. So I just ask that if anyone comes back to the main meeting, which you are able to do at any time, that you have your camera off and are muted, because I will give you the ability to unmute and chat before I open up the rooms. But yeah, that's what we will be doing.
Awesome. Yeah. So feel free in your breakout rooms to discuss the progressive revenue discussion, the legislative update. We'll be discussing we have a resolution later on the agenda about eliminating the filibuster in the US Senate, and then also about asking Joe Fain to step down from the Redistricting Commission. So there are all sorts of things to discuss, and looking forward to getting a chance to talk with you all. So great. So Morgan, are you going to send us all to our breakout rooms?
Yes.
Awesome.
1 second, just making sure everyone has chat permissions.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. Okay.
Hey, everybody. We will get started just as soon as we have everybody back from our breakout rooms. Morgan, is everyone back with us?
Looks like yes.
Okay, awesome.
Let's come back.
All right. Did someone tell me that Hamdi Mohammed was here?
Yeah, I saw her join and be admitted.
All right, Hamdi, if you are here, please put up your hand and we will, would love to have you introduce yourself to folks. I'm not seeing her right now.
I'll see her anymore, yeah.
Okay, so, well, hopefully Hamdi will rejoin us shortly. I hope you all had a good conversations in your breakout rooms. We had a good time discussing progressive taxes and the getting rid of the filibuster in ours, and really good to talk to you all. So moving through our agenda, up next we have our committee reports. So first up is our membership committee. Bryce, oops. Bryce,
oh, you took me by surprise there. All
yes.
right.
Here we go.
Let's see. Quick update. All right. We have a wonderful meeting in the membership committee where we're discussing all sorts of engagement opportunities for you, our wonderful general meeting participants, as well as ways to grow our ranks and increase our ability of hearing every voice within the 43rd. So please come join if you have any ideas, questions about that. We meet every second Thursday of the month. What's the next thing? So I have been working hard on a talk about how to engage in community. It ties into discussions about how to join the 43rd. It's a talk that I'm trying to target towards colleges and high schools in order to address our lack of voices from especially younger and especially BIPOC voices, members of the community. So that talk is in the progress. I've reached out as a trial run to an old organization I used to participate in, and I am waiting to hear back from them. Along the lines, I've also done some coding work to alleviate some of the manual labor that is required to massage some of the voting or some of our activist records, and that will alleviate some of the pain with managing all of those records for myself and then future people who may be chair of the membership committee. So that is my update for today.
Awesome, thank you, Bryce. Up next is our elections committee, Sam McVitie.
There we go. Unmuted. Thank you. So a couple updates from the elections committee. So we're going to be voting on endorsement rules next month in April, and we're starting to kick off our endorsements process, looking for moderators. And so if you have ideas on who you'd like to see moderate our candidate forums and things like that, please reach out to Elections @. So we're excited to be rolling those out. We should have a lot of competitive races. And then the other major update is around, we rolled out our first state of the race update. So that should be in all of your inboxes. And huge thanks to Ryan, who you saw earlier, being elected as PCO, for putting that together. But again, please send any feedback that you have on that to Elections @. We're really excited to be providing additional information about the race, and both for races that apply to the 43rd, but also some adjacent races as well. So yeah, let us know what you'd like to see. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sam. So that mayor's race is getting pretty crowded. So keep an eye out for those so you can keep track of things. It's really helpful to have all that information in one place. Okay, up next is Dawn with our fundraising committee.
Hi, everyone. My name's Dawn. I've been reaching out to various nonprofit organizations and mutual aid to learn how the 43rd can best provide direct action to our communities in need. And I've been compiling deliverables so that the 43rd can be more informed, and if they choose to follow that path of mutual aid, that they can choose and select which ones. And I'm also amplifying those melanated voices and underrepresented voices in 43rd Democrats. If there's any questions that you want to ask or contribute any ideas and suggestions for mutual aid and fundraising and how the 43rd can directly help our communities, please contact me through Slack channels and also through the 43rd, my emails there. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, John. Really appreciate it. All right, up next is our PCO Committee Chair, Cody Olson.
All right. Hello, everyone. Yeah, relatively brief update here. Kind of the two big things I've been working on are trying to get a PCO committee up and going. So first, I am going to share my email here in the chat. Well, I'll do this after I stop talking. Apparently, I can't do both. But multitasking is hard. Yeah, basically trying to get a PCO committee going just so that we can be I think even quicker to respond to our PCOs and just be even better with our organizing. So I would highlight this as a particularly good avenue if you're somebody who maybe ran for PCO but wasn't able to be elected, or just are a member and wanting to get more involved. Yeah, and then we, as of these appointments that we did just a little bit earlier in the meeting, I think we have right now 124 PCOs. That means we have close to 100 precincts that are vacant. So still trying to fill those. And yeah, I think that is mostly it. So again, I'll share my email if you're wanting to get involved with the PCO committee. Feel free to reach out to me. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks so much, Cody. All right, up next is Tara with our report from the King County Democrats.
All right, we had another long King County meeting. The parts that are useful for the 43rd to know: first, the candidate questionnaires are available online. Go to kcdems.org and it's under endorsements if you or someone you know is running for office. We also heard from all of the candidates for the King County Conservation District election, which the 43rd heard from many candidates there. It is one more week to vote. I put the link in the chat. If you haven't voted, please consider doing so now. King County endorsed 4 of the candidates running: Brittany Bush-Boley, Kaylee Clark, John Comerford, and Melissa Tatro. So there's ones to look at and make your own decision. And we will be getting into endorsements soon. So we'll be letting you know when that starts happening.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much, Tara. I think I mentioned this earlier, but also related to King County, is that Jesse Murray has been appointed our representative on the King County Endorsements Committee. So since Tara mentioned that, I thought I'd make sure to announce that. I think I did last month, but you have heard it again. All right. Up next is Amy Madden to give us a report on the state committee.
Hey everyone, I'll keep this kind of brief and probably going to have a much longer report next month. But for now, the state party has put together some materials regarding the American Rescue Plan to help you read over and become more familiar about what this legislation is doing for Americans, and also an impact breakdown to really help you to be able to talk about it with others and be informed. I'm going to put the links to those 2 resources in the chat, so I'll encourage you to click on those and read through them. The other thing for now is just that the state party is partnering with the ASDC Best Practices Institute to do training. The deadline to sign up for the training already passed, but I want to encourage you to keep your eyes out for that opportunity coming up again. And also, if you did sign up for the training, please feel free to send me an email. And I'd like to get a discussion group going among 43rd folks who did sign up for the training. And I'll put my email in the chat as well. That's all for now. Much more next month.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much, Amy. Are there any other board members who want to give committee reports? Those are all the ones I had on my list. All right, not seeing any. Great. So thanks so much to all of our hardworking committee chairs and representatives. I really appreciate your work. And we will move into the resolutions on our agenda. So the first one up is a resolution in support of eliminating the Senate filibuster. I will share a link to that here in the chat for everybody. And it is sponsored by Camille Gix and Paul Chapman. So do the two, you want to give us an overview of what is, it's somewhat long. So if you could just give us an overview of what's in the resolution, that would be great. We'll take some time for questions and then we can move to discussing it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Camille, do you want me to do the top part and you can do the bottom?
Yep.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
So yes, this is a super long resolution. The top part, all the whereases, walk through the history of the filibuster, how it was basically, in all practical purposes, implemented as a tool of racism and slavery, and then after the Civil War, to keep building Jim Crow laws and whatnot. So that's sort of the first page. The second page of the whereases gets into the opportunity costs we have by keeping the filibuster, all of the legislation that is currently under consideration in Congress that is blocked because of the filibuster, the People for All Voting Access Act, the Equality Act to prevent discrimination, immigration laws, $15 minimum wage, a new Civil Rights Act, and more. So that's sort of what those all are. The intent here is to help all of us and others who read this to understand the history and the impact of this. I'll just say one thing that, as I was doing the research on this, one thing that I learned that I didn't know before is that the filibuster was used after Reconstruction to block 200 anti-lynching laws. And we still don't have an anti-lynching law in the United States. Camille?
Yeah, so that covers most of, like the whereases. So anyone that might not be aware, with the filibuster, basically any legislation requires in the Senate a 60-40 supermajority to pass anything, which is which actually harms the ability to act bipartisanly, because people just kind of get stuck in their position and there's no way to really change anything there. So eliminating the filibuster would bring us back to a simple majority and allow the new administration to pass a lot more of the campaign promises that were promised during the campaign season, like Paul said. And so the therefores, the idea behind this resolution is if we are to pass it, to then send it to both Senators Murray and Cantwell and Representative Jayapal, as well as other legislative districts and organizations around the state so that we can efficiently communicate this desire for our senators to not only support it, but speak out in favor of it, because we have heard from Senator Murray specifically that she is in favor of potentially eliminating it, but has not been super willing to come forward to express that support. So this resolution will call on her to do that.
Great, thank you both. Are there any questions about the resolution, about the filibuster, in general, about the legislation that's being blocked, that folks would like answered before we move into a discussion of the resolution itself? I know this is a very politically engaged crowd, so you've likely seen a lot of the discussion elsewhere. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. So that's great. That's fine. So we can move to discussion. So I will ask, is there anyone interested in speaking in opposition to this resolution? Anyone interested in speaking in opposition? And I'm asking that first because if there isn't, we'll just move forward and approve by unanimous consent. All right, one last time, anyone interested in speaking out in opposition? Okay, so seeing none, we'll give it one last time. Propose we adopt this by unanimous consent. Is there anyone opposed to adopting this resolution? All right, seeing none, we have adopted this resolution and come out in support of eliminating the filibuster. Thanks so much, Paul and Camille. Camille, I know you have plans to bring this to other LDs. Do you want to share a little bit of what's going on there?
Yeah, so I've, thanks to the very hard work of one of our PCOs, David, he went through and found contact info for almost every other LD in the state. And so I went and sent this resolution asking different LDs if they would be willing to present it at their membership meetings, and have heard back from a good number, like 12, I believe, that are planning on presenting it at their membership meetings. I'll be attending an executive board meeting for one of the LDs next week to explain the resolution and get them to bring it to their membership as well. So hopefully we will be able to write up a letter to the senators on this issue and have a bunch of legislative districts around the state sign on, as well as other organizations, in order to hopefully pressure the offices of Patty Murray and Maria Cantwell to publicly support this. Nico, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did have a question. I guess it's not as much about the filibuster itself, but more so about the resolution and how the writers of the resolution see this kind of call to action being implemented by the senators. Specifically, I mean, the Senate is constructed to be a Republican body. That having 2 senators per state gives small states that typically vote by and large more so for Republicans, gives them a favor in representation. We're going to lose the Senate soon. It might not be in 22, might not be in 24, might not be, but we will lose it soon. Again, do you kind of envision adding some sort of part to the resolution that calls on our senators to, do this while we have the majority, but then in lame duck session, reinstate the filibuster? I want to know what the kind of vision long-term is for protecting, a Democratic minority.
That's a good question. Yeah, I think that, yeah, go for it.
Oh, Paul had his hand up, so sorry, we have to unmute Paul quick.
Hi, yeah, thanks for that question. One of the links in at the bottom is it to an article that addresses that point. Historically, the filibuster has benefited conservative and especially racist positions and not progressive positions. So, while there is that risk that, over the long term, maybe this would result in when the Republicans have control of the Senate that, Democrats and liberals, progressives wouldn't have the ability to block particular things that they might otherwise have. But historically, that has not been the case. Historically, what this has allowed is for Republicans, again, particularly with racist positions, to block progressive action. And without this there isn't much that we can do in this time, these 2 years that we have all three branches of government. And, you know, we saw that back in the beginning of Obama's first term, when we did have all three branches of government, Democrats were hamstrung because of filibuster to a significant extent. And so if we can pass these laws, which will end up with material benefit to the larger American populace, you know, whether you're conservative or Republican, these bills are going to benefit you, or most of these. That can help build the awareness that progressive policies actually are good for the country, and they're good for the for red states and conservatives, just as they are good for blue states and liberals. So that's I don't know if that's a particularly satisfying answer, you know, but on the whole, getting rid of the filibuster will revert us more back to the democratic process that was built into the Senate to begin with, as opposed to this rather undemocratic process that the Senate has kind of fallen into by kind of accident over the centuries.
Kelsey, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm in like full agreement with both Nico and Paul, which is funny. But I did want to pull out a couple of things that were said in the breakout group by a number of folks that seemed a consensus, at least, that like I haven't heard said yet. But you know, the removal of the filibuster did result in like our SCOTUS appointments of Kavanaugh, of Gorsuch, and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of where a lot of that hesitancy of full-fledged removal does come from, and I find that to be valid. And I think Nico, when they explain what they were saying, I points to that in some ways. And you know, just that a lot of just blue states could flip back to red. And I'm in agreement with both these things, because I feel like, you know, that's a reality and one that we've seen play out that is very detrimental, especially with like Kavanaugh and Gorsuch. You know, and that, but like obviously the filibuster is very just undemocratic, like Paul has said, and has a history of being used for conservative agendas. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that out since that was said in the group. I haven't heard it detailed as far as Nico obviously referenced it.
Yeah. I mean, there's sorry. Yeah, there's definitely risk. There's definitely potential for downside. On the whole, though, you know, point well taken.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do want to recognize that we have another resolution to get to, but we can get through these two hands. So Annabelle, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to note that I think that the best defense against that is not, you know, do we try and reinstitute a filibuster in some form? It's, you know, remove the filibuster so we can pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, or whatever it's called in the Senate these days, whatever that's called, and ensure voting rights across the country. And I think we'll see that concern over how states flipping and staying red suddenly become less of a problem. Funny what happens when people are actually allowed to vote.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Annabelle. And then Nico again.
Yeah, I guess this is just another quick question for the writers of the resolution. If other LDs, you know, in particular other LDs who are not known as being as willing to push the threshold as the 43rd, come back and say, you know, we would prefer that the filibuster be lowered to 53 senators, so that, you know, or 55 senators as opposed to 60, which is just, I think the problem is it's a hard threshold to get that many senators from another party. But would that be something that the writers of the resolution were open to? I didn't want to, say any of this and speak against if everyone else is for it, because it's not that I'm against it. It's just that this scares the shit out of me, because now my voting rights are dependent on a majority in the United States Senate as opposed to 60 senators in the United States Senate. That's just the scary part for me.
Yeah, we didn't specify the exact, process and end result of it. So, if some wanted to write their resolution that they would prefer to 53, I would leave that up to those LDs. I guess I'd point out, right now, our voting rights are being blocked by 41 senators today. And so, it's a rather undemocratic. And as Annabelle was saying, I think that if we can eliminate the filibuster so that we can pass voting rights, so that we can ensure fair access to the polls, the message of Democrats and progressives, I think, stands on its own for the most part in terms of attracting real material benefit to the country, and we can win in a fair game. And today we can't win in a fair game because the game isn't fair. We're seeing in Georgia voting rights being taken away from, particularly Black residents of Georgia. So I get, I'm an old white guy, and I approach this very, from a different experience, and I totally recognize that, and it, that it might not fill me with the same terror that it might fill others. So
yeah,
I'm not trying to discount what you're saying.
Yeah, thanks, Nico. So this is a really great discussion. I really appreciate it. We can get through these last two. I sense a lot of folks who are passionate about this topic and also wanted the resolution to pass. So we've kind of moved discussion afterwards. That's okay, but let's wrap it up after Linda and Gaten. So Linda.
Thanks. So the reason I wanted to say something was our process used to be that a resolution from a district went to a county resolutions committee and then even to the state. And if we're still doing that, I remember that when I sat on that committee, we really insisted that resolutions be one page. And we were very fierce about that. And I know Tara will remember doing a lot of rewrites. And I'm thinking that the conversation we just had has some really important points that should be conveyed by anybody who's going to take this resolution to the county or the state level. That we want to be cautious and we want to see this roadblock removed. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I think those are some really great comments, and the idea is definitely to take this to the county, other LDs in the state, and so we will absolutely have to adapt it to those guidelines. So that's a great call out. Aiden. Sorry, I have to ask you to unmute.
I was just going to say, in response to Nico's excellent point about the possibility of 53 or 55, that due to a quirk of history, it would actually, to change the rules from 60 to another number, it would take 67 votes. The only way that they're going to get rid of the 60 vote rule would be through the nuclear option, would be just to get rid of the cloture vote motion entirely. So, quirks of the Senate.
Interesting.
Yep, it has some interesting rules for sure. Okay, thank you so much to Paul and Camille for your work on this. I'm sure you'll be updating us in future meetings on the positions our senators take on the filibuster and whether we can get all of this legislation passed. So with that, I do think that we do have Hamdi Mohammed here, who is running for Seattle Port Commissioner. And so we're going to give Hamdi a couple minutes to introduce herself to us. I think you all remember Hamdi briefly chaired our 43rd District Democrats reorganization meeting in January. So it's great to have Hamdi back. Are you with us, Hamdi?
I am. Thank you, Scott. Hi, everyone. My name is Hamdi Mohammed. My pronouns are she and her. I'm running for the Port of Seattle Commission. And when you're running a countywide race, you're hopping on from Zoom to Zoom and, you know, one legislative district to the next. But I'm excited about this race. We have received so much support. I am proud to say that we've received an early endorsement from SEIU Local 6, Fuse Washington, which is one of our largest progressive organizations in the nation and in the states, as well as U.S. Congresswoman Jayapal, and we've received over 30 endorsements from elected officials, and a lot of our grassroots organizers are supporting this campaign. Folks are really excited. I'm running for a couple of reasons. As you guys may know, the port's operations significantly impact our airport community, and currently none of our port commissioners actually live in that community, and it's time that we get a seat at the table. Sometimes people forget that over 70% of the port's budget comes from the airport, and you know, when you think about air quality, noise pollution, this is a community that has been significantly impacted. I have worked all over our region. I've lived in Seattle, graduated from the University of Washington, and so I bring that regional perspective as well. Currently, I live in SeaTac. If I look outside my window, I see the planes taking off. SeaTac Airport's right around the corner from me, and so I want to be able to bring my perspective and voice to the table. One of my priorities is creating jobs, equitable economic development. Environmental protection is also a priority, and those things go hand in hand, right? Environmental protection and economic justice and economic issues go hand in hand, and our communities have been hit so hard by this pandemic, and it's really important that we have someone that has a strong equity lens at the table at the Port Commission right now. I'm proud to say I work for the Office of Equity and Social Justice, am a policy advisor. I advise on our county's $12 billion budget. I manage the $3 million COVID-19 response funds for the county and have supported organizations across our region with those dollars, and will continue to do that now.
And that's 2 minutes. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you all so much.
Thanks so much, Hamdi. Really appreciate it. And if you want to send a link to your website and social media to Morgan in the chat, then we'll get that shared out. So yeah, really great to hear from you and the other Port Commission candidates today. So with that, we will move on to the final item on our agenda, which is a resolution calling for the resignation or removal of Joe Fain from the Washington State Redistricting Commission. This was introduced by Paul Chapman, and Jesse Murray is the sponsor as well. So I don't know which of them are on the chat. It looks like Paul is still here. Where did Paul go? Oh, there you are. So Paul, do you want to introduce this resolution?
Yeah, is Jesse on?
I've
done a lot of speaking, and if Jesse's on, I'd rather they talk, but I'm happy to if.
Yeah, I don't see Jesse here right now.
Okay. And you provided the link for everybody?
I put the link in the chat, yes.
All right. So this resolution, the whereas goes through a little bit of the history here. Joe Fain was a state senator. He was credibly accused of rape, a rape that happened in 2007. An investigation was started. He himself called for an investigation. An investigation was halted as he left the Washington legislature. He's now been appointed to the Washington State Redistricting Committee by the GOP. The National Women's Political Caucus of Washington has called for his resignation. or if that doesn't happen, for a code of conduct if he doesn't resign or is not removed. And so I'll just read the therefores now. Therefore be it resolved the 43rd Democrats call on Joe Fain to resign from the redistricting committee until there's a proper investigation of these allegations. And be it further resolved that the 43rd Democrats call on the Washington State GOP to remove Joe Fain from the commission if he doesn't resign, or the legislature to remove Joe if the GOP doesn't remove him, and calling on the Washington State legislature to perform a full and proper investigation of these allegations, urging the redistricting commission to adopt the code of conduct that the National Women's Political Caucus of Washington has proposed, including that Joe Fain have no in-person access to staff, members of the public, or other commissioners, and that Joe Fain's written, digital, and verbal communication to any internal, external person be supervised by a predetermined third-party staffer, and that copies of this resolution be submitted to the Washington State GOP, the Redistricting Commission, the State Legislative Ethics Board, the National Women's Political Caucus of Washington, our 43rd representatives, Peterson, Chop, Macri, and to the media.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions for Paul about the resolution or why this is necessary? Are there any questions from folks? All right, seeing no questions, is there anyone who wants to speak against this resolution? And someone pointed out earlier, I realize everybody's muted, so please, if you do want to speak against, please raise your hand, or you can send me a private message too if you are having trouble doing that. So I want to make sure that's clear to everybody. All right, anyone interested in speaking against? Final call. All right, seeing none. Are there any objections to adopting this resolution? Oh, I see Linda's hand is up. Linda, I'm asking you to unmute.
I'm just objecting. I didn't ask to speak.
Okay, sure. So if you are objecting, then we will, I'm trying to think the way we'll do this. I guess we'll take this to a vote. Annabelle, did you have the forms for us?
I do. Let me pull that up. Make sure I've got the right link.
Okay.
I do.
While Annabelle's doing that, I did put the information from Hamdi Hamid in the chat. So please, please do see that there. All right. So Annabelle has shared the Google form. That looks correct to me. We will leave the voting open on that for 5 minutes. So please go to the form. You'll need your voting code, and then you can put in whether it's very straightforward. It's, are you in favor of adopting the resolution? Keep in mind that no comes before yes. I know that it's
damn it, sorry. I swear I will fix that for next month.
Yeah, no worries. Just a few people have called out that they've gotten confused about that, so I want to make that clear. So we'll leave that open for the next 5 minutes, and we will go to good of the order for now, because this is the last item on our agenda, so we can just get through good of the order. So yeah, if folks have good of the order, any announcements or things you want to share, please raise your hand, and we'd love to hear from you. I know you're all voting as well. So please do take care of that first, and then we'll get there. So I have a good of the order that I will share, which is that on this coming Thursday I think it's from noon to 1, the King County Democrats are hosting a discussion on universal basic income with Gurmai Zahalai, and then I'm forgetting his name right now because I don't have it up, but the former mayor of Stockton, California, where they did a universal basic income pilot, which just came back with some really promising and encouraging results. I will get the Facebook event for you all in the next minute or so while other people are going, but I'm looking forward to that, planning to attend, and just want to recommend it to you all. I know it's an idea I've heard various levels of support for in the 43rd, and something I know we all want to learn more about. So that is on Thursday, and I will share the information with you all. Mayor Michael Tubbs, thank you, Maddie. I appreciate that. All right, any other good of the orders? I know there's a lot going on in the 43rd these days that folks want to share about. All right, Camille, go for it.
I know we've made a couple plugs already for folks to join the Policy and Advocacy Committee. We have a couple of needs for people to act as liaisons to some coalitions that we're hoping to partner with. There's a housing, a healthy and affordable housing coalition that we would love to have someone be a liaison for, as well as the Balance Our Tax Code coalition, which I've been attending, but I can no longer attend due to some work conflicts. So if there's more reasons to join the Policy and Advocacy Committee, if you're interested, we've got a lot of need for more members because there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Paul.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind people, if you didn't listen to the 43rd Town Hall that was on Saturday, that is available on YouTube. I'll try to find it and I'll message Scott or somebody so we can get in the link here too, but might be of interest to people.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to the folks who attended that and asked some really good questions. All right, any other good of the orders? Okay, Annabelle, have the votes stopped coming in?
Yes, I am not seeing any more votes in the last couple of minutes. I think we can provide results.
Okay, yeah, sounds great. So please do.
Okay, the motion to adopt the resolution passes 24. Oh, another one just snuck in, 25-1. That'll teach me to not close the form before I start sharing results.
Yes. Okay, great. All right, Paul just sent me the 43rd Town Hall. Okay, so the resolution carries, and we will get working on those therefores. I want to thank Paul and Jesse for bringing that forward. I know our Washington State Dems chair, Tina Budowski, has also really done a lot to call this out and made what it is a big deal. So really proud of that work there, and I'm glad we're joining that. Paul asked, what was the vote count? Could you reiterate that for us, Annabelle?
I can if I unmute myself first. The vote count, final vote count was 25 yes, 1 no.
Great. All right. I have just shared the link to the 43rd Town Hall that Paul sent me. I see Linda's hand is up.
It's pretty clear who the one no vote was, or I think probably everyone is guessing who it was, whether it was me or not. And I just want to make clear that I do support the main idea of the resolution. I think some of the action it calls for is a little bit precipitous. So I have some problems with the details, but not with the overall intent that people be held accountable.
Yeah, thanks, Linda, and really appreciate that. So
thank you.
Okay, so with that, since we've already gotten through good of the order, we are through our agenda and can move to adjourn. So thanks everybody for joining us. All right. Yeah, thanks so much. And our next meeting will be on April, I'm finding this out myself, April 20th will be our next 43rd meeting. So we'll see you all then or in committee work before that. So thanks so much. All right.